So just recently, over the past 2 days, The Verge and many other game journalist outlets have reported that Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo will in fact be skipping out on E3 2023, which is definitely the nail in the coffin for this once mega event of the game industry. Hearing this news reinforces to me, in my opinion, that the golden era of gaming has long since disappeared, and E3 was just a testament of that era. But the writing on the wall was in fact there, and some people quite ignored it. But please do not ignore that subscribe button and notification bell for more fighting game news and RPG content here on this channel. Now, I just wanted to just stray away from fighting games and RPGs today and just talk a bit about E3. But before I give my thoughts on the death of E3, I would like to explain what the event is for those of you who don't know what the hell I'm talking about, since the new generation of gamers don't rely on such events to get their news on upcoming games and hardware. So E3 is essentially a game event that opens its first conference around May of 1995. This is where the giant game companies of the gaming industry showcase some of their latest hardware and games to journalists and the mainstream media press to report their experiences to the public. The convention is held in Los Angeles once a year around the beginning of June after its initial debut. Now, these events were monumental to the gaming industry. It was very competitive. Game journalists were extremely powerful back then, and it was a must for the game corporations to make sure their games reach a wider audience, allowing journalists to have hands-on with the latest consoles or games before they even launched. Remember, the internet was almost non-existent at the time, or just in its infant stage, so gamers had to rely on gaming magazines or news articles to stay in the loop for all the latest gaming details. But how long would this format uphold as time progressed and technology evolves? It was only a matter of time before this event becomes irrelevant to these giant game companies, and Nintendo was the one who started it all, and the rest of the industry just followed afterwards. So, how does Nintendo play a role in the downfall of E3? Well, it all began when Nintendo had announced that they won't be having a formal presentation at E3, but instead will be having a live stream conference for the first time. Thus, the Nintendo Direct was born. Now, at the time, many other gamers thought it was like an insane decision, a crazy idea from these guys. How could you not appear at one of the biggest gaming events of the industry? Nintendo appeared to be quite confident because we were finally able to get a chance to see the rumored Smash Brothers for Wii U and 3DS for the first time. They destroyed the internet with the reveal of Mega Man as a third-party character joining the game's rosters. Now, little that we know was that Nintendo was laying the foundation of what's to come for game presentations in the future. Nintendo Directs proved that E3 was no longer needed to be a bridge that connects gaming journalists with its core audience. Nintendo were able to speak directly to their target audience with their Nintendo Directs, thus the name Direct. These Directs generate some of the hypest moments within the gaming industry and its community of gamers. Nintendo always trend on social media because of its game reveals from their Directs. So why do we need to wait until June of each year to get these exciting games announced when a company can just host a presentation whenever they feel it's the right moment to do so? So then, back in 2018, Sony followed Nintendo's lead and decided not to appear at E3, which gamers didn't see that coming. They eventually followed with their State of Play in 2019, which is a format similar to Nintendo's Direct presentation. This is where gamers began to worry about the state of the convention at this point, but what really turned the event upside down on its head is when we got hit with the pandemic. Now, this had caused the cancellation of the event, and instead, a new event called the Summer Game Fest by Jeff Keighley and many others came into place, which my brothers and I had definitely covered in our Game Fiends segment. It was just one disaster after another. Now, we fast forward to today, we now have Microsoft hosting their own Directs in order to connect with their audience. Now, all three mega competitors are absent from this year's event, but why? Simple. How we receive gaming news and information is much different today compared to what it was like in the mid-90s to 2015. Game journalists was at the epicenter of how gamers get their gaming information back in the day. I grew up during a time when the internet wasn't even prominent as it is today. We had to rely on game magazines like GamePro, Game Informer, Next Generation, Dreamcast Magazine, Nintendo Power, and PlayStation Magazine. This is how I stayed informed with the ins and outs of the gaming industry. This was in fact how I was able to tell if my friends were hardcore gamers. Most kids at my age at the time relied on television commercials to know when a new game was coming, or go to Toys R Us kiosks to see what games were available. If you were a hardcore gamer though, you knew about E3. And if any of the kids knew about E3, you knew that they were on your level of knowledge when it came to gaming. None of that is relevant today. Game journalists aren't needed anymore. In fact, places like Polygon and Kotaku hates gamers like you, because you don't need any of them, especially after they sold out in order to gain special privileges and access to these game corporations' resources by giving them good reviews and a chance to work for their company. Now, we live in a social media age where knowledge is available everywhere. The average person can grab a camera and record themselves and give their opinions on video games, and people would trust them before they even trust a game journalist. So the content creator became the new go-to source for gaming. Game companies are now reaching out to people like myself and many others to promote their games and also give their opinions on them. And now the gaming information landscape has shifted into a more independent direction. Now that Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft are now presenting their own events without the need of E3. And Nintendo literally saved millions of dollars by not having to have a presentation and a extravagant booth like the past E3s. So why would Sony and Microsoft not follow in their footsteps? So what does this mean moving forward? Well, I believe E3 could become pretty much a honeypot for independent developers looking to get exposure for their upcoming game releases, or it could also be the event to pitch for publishers. So the potential is still there, but it just won't be the same like it used to be, sadly. And E3 was just something growing up as a kid, man. I look forward to it, especially with my father and my brothers, man. We just couldn't wait for that Game Informed magazine or that PlayStation magazine or Dreamcast magazine to pretty much be shipped to our house, and I would run to the door when the mailman comes, and then we would open it and we would see the E3, artwork for that magazine, and I would just stare at that magazine and read the pages from front to back. I would reread it every day, and I would take it to school, share it with my friends, talk to them about it, and it was just a fun moment growing up in that era as a kid. But you don't need that anymore. You don't need magazines anymore. You don't need to rely on journalists anymore. You can just do everything from your smartphone, from your house, create your own content, and that era is gone. E3 was the representation and the last of that era of gaming that I'm going to miss. It just reminds me of how old I have become as a gamer, but that pretty much wraps up this video. I definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comment sections below. What do you think about E3 just not being the same anymore, and Nintendo and Microsoft and Sony just doing their own thing now? Definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comment sections below. And which E3 was your favorite E3? Which year? Definitely like to know that too. So if you like the video, hit the like button, and also, like I said, don't forget to subscribe and notification bell for more RPG and fighting game content here on this channel. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you game fiends later. Peace out.